I was in a car on the late afternoon of January 12th. We had just left Deschapelles and we were on the road going to Port-au-Prince. And we saw that people were on the street. People were running with their arms up. Women were singing. People were singing. And we couldn't figure out what had happened, if it was some kind of local celebration that we didn't know about. But we asked people along the road in the area of Des Hommes, La Chapelle, and they said that that a house fell down. And then the next person said there was an earthquake.
So the first thing I did was try to get a phone to communicate with my family and loved ones, and but at that time communications were down. So I got no news from my family. A bit after, I was hearing that the earthquake was 7.0 in Port-au-Prince, and that there were multiple buildings were down, and that a lot of victims.
The day of the earthquake, so we have, I will say, three major hospitals in Port-au-Prince. The first is the government hospital. So that hospital was shut down, but none of the building was really damaged. A CDTI was all cracked up along with Canapéville, who had some damage also.
Earthquake came around 5 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. Shortly thereafter, we received 2 or 3 patients who had been in buildings across the river where there are 2- and 3-story buildings, but they had minor injuries. But by midnight, floods of patients started to come in the back of tap-taps, the open back pickups. And they were just brought out from family members, said, go to Hospital Albert Schweitzer, that's the best place to go. And they showed up with terrible injuries, with crushing injuries and with broken bones, long bones. And we were able to process them and triage them and get them lined up, but they kept coming and coming and coming. And in total, we saw more than 815 patients.
On day 2, still the hospital was not working, and everyone was trying to get their patient to the countryside to hospital that the tank was standing up, and Hospital Albert Schweitzer was one of them.
We went through Croix de Bouquet to get to the part of Port-au-Prince we were going to, and there was a long wall by the road, a very tall wall that had fallen down flat. We saw cars and trapped under it, and everyone was on the street. Everyone was walking. I figured they were probably walking to try and find where their family were, because they couldn't call them, so they're going to walk to their family and friends' houses to find out if they're okay. We saw buildings that had fallen. Just so many people on foot. And when we got closer to the city, there was a huge traffic jam, and I wasn't sure if we were even going to be able to get in. It turns out that the traffic jam was caused by a bridge that you have to cross, and the police were there and they were controlling so that no more than one lane of traffic crossed the bridge at a time. And traffic was jammed in both directions. We eventually found out that there were a lot more people trying to get out of the city than go in. We had a number of cars ask us. They saw that we were a Hospital Albert Schweitzer vehicle, and they asked us, is the hospital still standing? Can we take our injured there? And we said yes.
We're located about 3 hours north of Port-au-Prince, and it's a pretty good road, and people know about it, and people know about the hospital. What they didn't have was transportation. There were no ambulances, so just private pickup trucks that serve as public conveyances here were commandeered, and patients were put in them 2 or 3 at a time, and they drove out here all through the night and the day for the first several days after the earthquake. And this was a terribly hard trip for them. Some of the people who had basic injuries, the people took the doors off their houses and put the patient on the door, and then put the door in the pickup truck, which actually was a very good way to protect them during the trip. But it's a bumpy trip. It isn't easy at all, and it's a long trip when you're in pain, and which most of these people were in incredible pain with the injuries they had received.